Imagine walking through a prehistoric forest nearly 10,000 years ago. You haven't eaten properly in days. Every hunt is a gamble. Every winter claims lives. Every sunrise is another battle for survival. Then one day, someone does something that seems almost unbelievable. Instead of killing a wild animal for meat, they try to drink its milk, not the milk of their own mother, the milk of another species. Today, that sounds completely normal. Billions of people pour milk over cereal, stir it into coffee, turn it into cheese, yogurt, butter, and ice cream without giving it a second thought. But if you think about it, it's actually one of the strangest things humans have ever done. No other animal regularly drinks the milk of another species, and most adult mammals stop drinking milk altogether, so why didn't we? Who was the first person brave enough to approach a massive wild cow, goat, or sheep and decide to milk it? Was it an accident, a desperate experiment, or the discovery that changed human history forever? This is the incredible story of how one simple white liquid helped build civilizations, transformed our bodies through evolution, and quietly changed the world. Milk isn't just another food, it has fueled empires, fed kings, saved communities during famine-inspired religious rituals, started scientific revolutions, and even changed human DNA. The story of milk isn't really about milk, it's about survival, innovation, curiosity, and humanity's remarkable ability to adapt. To understand why milk became one of history's most important foods, we have to travel back to a world where there were no farms, no villages, no cows grazing peacefully in green fields. A world where drinking animal milk wasn't just unusual, it was impossible. For almost 300,000 years, humans lived as hunter-gatherers. There were no supermarkets, no refrigerators, no agriculture, no livestock. People survived by hunting wild animals, catching fish, collecting fruits, digging up roots, and gathering whatever nature offered. Life was incredibly unpredictable. Some weeks brought successful hunts, others brought starvation. Children often died young, entire. Families could disappear after a harsh winter or a long drought. Food wasn't measured in calories, it was measured in chances. If you missed a hunt, you might not eat for days. Back then, wild cattle, known as aurochs, were enormous, aggressive creatures, standing nearly 2 meters tall at the shoulder. They were larger and far more dangerous than today's domesticated cows. They weren't gentle farm animals, they were powerful beasts capable of killing hunters with a single charge. Wild goats and sheep were equally difficult to catch. Nobody thought about keeping them alive. Animals meant meat, nothing more. Milk belonged to newborn animals, not humans. For thousands upon thousands of years, that's simply how nature worked. Every mammal drank milk only during infancy. Once they grew up, they stopped. Humans were no different then. Something extraordinary happened. Around 12,000 years ago, the Earth's climate began to change. Last ice age slowly came to an end. Glaciers retreated. Temperatures rose. Forests expanded. Grasslands stretched across vast regions. Animals migrated into new territories. And for the first time in history, some humans stopped wandering. Instead of constantly chasing food, they began producing it. This period became known as the Neolithic Revolution. It remains one of the greatest turning points in human history. People learned that seeds could be planted, crops could be harvested, animals could be raised instead of hunted. Communities started settling in, permanent villages. Life was changing faster than ever before. Among the first animals to be domesticated were dogs. Then came goats, followed by sheep, later cattle. At first, these animals were incredibly valuable, not because of their milk, but because they provided meat, hides, bones, and eventually strength for pulling heavy loads. But keeping animals alive created an entirely new possibility. Instead of getting food only once when the animal died, could people receive food every single day while the animal stayed alive? That simple question would lead to one of humanity's greatest discoveries. And somewhere, in one of the world's earliest farming communities, someone decided to find out. Imagine living in a small farming village nearly 9,000 years ago. The morning sun rises. Over simple mud brick homes, children chase goats through dusty Paths, women grind grain into flour, men repair stone, tools and wooden fences nearby. A herd of goats waits quietly inside a small enclosure. These animals are no longer wild. For generations, people have cared for them, protected them from predators, and bred them for food. Then one day, a mother goat gives birth. As her newborn drinks, someone notices something extraordinary. The goat keeps producing milk, far more than her baby can drink. Instead of letting that extra milk go to waste, someone places a clay bowl beneath the goat carefully, curiously. The first drops fall, no one knows. The name of the first person who did this. History never recorded it, but archaeologists believe it happened somewhere in the Fertile Crescent, a region stretching across parts of modern-day Iraq, Syria, Turkey, and Iran. This area is often called the cradle of civilization, where farming, permanent settlements, and some of humanity's earliest innovations first appeared. At first, drinking milk was probably an experiment. People didn't know whether it was safe, they didn't know how it would taste, or whether it would make them sick. It was simply another attempt to survive, one that would eventually reshape human history. You might wonder, how do we know any of this happened? After all, and milk disappears quickly. It leaves behind no bones, no fossils, no ancient bottles. For a long time, historians could only guess. Then, modern science changed everything. Archaeologists discovered that ancient clay pots absorb tiny amounts of fat during cooking and storage. Those microscopic traces can survive for thousands of years. Using advanced chemical analysis, scientists examined pottery recovered from Neolithic villages across Europe and the Middle East. Inside those pots, they found something. Remarkable milk fat. Some of these dairy residues are more than 8,000 years old. This was the first direct evidence that early farmers weren't just raising animals for meat, they were milking them. Scientists also discovered ancient strainers containing tiny holes. At first, nobody understood their purpose. Later analysis revealed milk, proteins trapped inside the pottery. These weren't ordinary bowls, they were cheese strainers. That means people weren't only drinking milk. They had already learned to transform it into cheese long before written language. Long before the pyramids, humans were making dairy products. It was one of the earliest examples of food technology in history. But there was one enormous problem. Most adults couldn't actually drink fresh milk. Today, millions of people enjoy a glass of milk without thinking twice. But for most early humans, milk caused stomach pain, cramps, bloating, and severe diarrhea. Why? Because babies produce an enzyme called lactase. Its job is to break down lactose, the natural sugar found in milk. As children grow older, most mammals stop producing lactase. Their bodies no longer expect to drink milk. Early humans were exactly the same. Once they were weaned from their mothers, their ability to digest milk gradually disappeared. So while their animals produced this valuable new food, many adults couldn't benefit from it. At first glance, it seemed like dairy farming might fail before it even began. But humans are incredibly good at solving problems, and this solution would come from two different directions. One through human creativity, the other through evolution itself. The first solution was simple. Instead of drinking fresh milk, people discovered they could turn it into cheese, yogurt, and fermented dairy products. Fermentation breaks down much of the lactose, making dairy easier to digest. Even people who couldn't tolerate fresh milk could often eat cheese or yogurt. The second solution took much longer, not years, not centuries, but thousands of years. Slowly, a tiny genetic mutation began spreading through certain human populations. People who carried this mutation continued producing lactase. Throughout adulthood, for them, milk became a powerful advantage. It provided clean nutrition during droughts, crop failures, and harsh winters. Generation after generation, that small mutation became more common. Without realizing it, humans weren't just changing milk, milk was changing humans. By 3000 BC, milk was no longer just a source of survival. It had become a symbol of prosperity. Across the ancient world, owning cattle, goats, or sheep meant more than having food. It meant wealth, power, security. Unlike a hunted animal that provided food only once, a healthy dairy animal could feed an entire family for years. Every morning, it offered something incredibly valuable: fresh milk. It could be shared with children, turned into butter, fermented into yogurt, or preserved as cheese for months. For the first time in history, people had discovered a renewable food source. This changed everything. Communities could support larger populations. Villages grew into towns, towns became cities, and some of history's first great civilizations began to rise. Milk wasn't the only reason. Civilization flourished, but it quietly became one of its strongest. Foundations travel now to the banks of the Nile River. Around 2500 BC, Egypt was building the Great Pyramids. Fields of wheat stretched across fertile land, massive temples reached toward the sky, and cattle grazed peacefully near the river. To the ancient Egyptians, cows represented far more than food. They symbolized life, fertility, and motherhood. The goddess Hathor, often shown with the ears or horns of a cow, was believed to protect women, children, music, joy, and abundance. Milk was associated with nourishment and divine care. Archaeologists have discovered tomb paintings showing servants milking cows and carrying dairy products in clay jars. Some tombs even included cheese and butter among the offerings prepared for the dead. The belief was simple: if food was needed in this life, it would also be needed in the next. Milk had become more than nourishment. It had become part of religion, part of culture, part of eternity. Far to the east, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, another civilization was transforming the world. Mesopotamia, often called the birthplace of cities. Here, ancient Sumerians developed writing, mathematics, and some of the earliest known laws, but hidden among their clay tablets is another fascinating detail: records describing dairy temple workers carefully. Counted cattle, farmers measured milk production, butter, and cheese became valuable trade goods. Some of the oldest written economic records in history aren't about gold, they're about livestock and dairy. To these early civilizations, milk wasn't just food, it was business, it was wealth, it was an economy. Thousands of kilometers away, another unique relationship with milk was developing. In the ancient Indus Valley, cattle was central to daily life. Over time, milk became deeply connected with spirituality and tradition. As Hindu traditions developed, cows came to be regarded with profound respect. Milk, butter, yogurt, and clarified butter, known as ghee, were used in religious ceremonies, offerings, and sacred rituals. Ghee lit temple lamps. Milk was poured over sacred statues. During acts of worship, ancient texts praised dairy as a gift that sustained both the body and the spirit. Unlike many cultures that saw milk simply as nutrition, here, it also carried symbolic meaning. A simple drink had become something sacred. The ancient Greeks admired cheese so much that it even appeared in their myths. According to legend, the hero Aristeas taught humans the art of making cheese. Whether myth or not, cheese quickly became a staple of Greek life. It was portable, nutritious, and lasted far longer than fresh milk. The Romans took dairy production even further. As their empire expanded across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, they spread farming techniques wherever they went. Roman writers describe different breeds of cattle, methods of preserving butter, and recipes for cheese. Some wealthy Roman households even had dedicated rooms for storing dairy products. Soldiers marching across the empire carried hard cheeses because they stayed edible during long campaigns. Merchants traded butter and cheese across vast distances. What had once been an experimental food in a small farming village had become one of the world's most valuable commodities. But despite its success, milk still faced one final challenge. Fresh milk spoiled quickly. Within hours, it could become unsafe to drink. For thousands of years, this limited how far it could travel. Humanity needed a way to preserve it, and that challenge would spark one of the greatest food innovations in history. For thousands of years, fresh milk came with a serious problem. It spoiled fast. Without refrigeration, a bucket of milk left in the sun could become unsafe within hours. In hot climates, it often turned sour before the day was over. For farmers, this meant constant waste. For cities, it meant fresh milk could only come from nearby animals. Long-distance transport was almost impossible, but people discovered something remarkable. When milk was left to ferment naturally, tiny microorganisms transformed it. The liquid thickened, its flavor changed, and it lasted much longer. What seemed like spoiled milk was actually becoming something new. Yogurt. Then came butter. By churning cream for long enough, the fat separated from the liquid, creating a food that could be stored for weeks or even months, and perhaps the greatest breakthrough of all: cheese. By adding natural enzymes or acidic ingredients, milk could be transformed into hundreds of different varieties. Soft cheeses, hard cheeses, aged cheeses, each with unique flavors, textures, and shelf lives. These weren't just delicious foods, they were survival tools. They allowed people to preserve valuable nutrients through harsh winters, long journeys and times of famine. Long before refrigerators existed, ancient farmers had already mastered food preservation. By the 1800s, cities were growing faster than ever, before millions of people now depended on milk, delivered from distant farms. But there was a deadly problem. Milk often carried dangerous bacteria. Diseases such as tuberculosis, typhoid fever, and brucellosis spread through contaminated dairy. Thousands of children died every year after drinking infected milk. Many families had no idea the milk they trusted could make them sick. Then, in the 1860s, a French scientist named Louis Pasteur made a revolutionary discovery. He found that heating liquids to a carefully controlled temperature could kill harmful microorganisms without significantly changing the taste. This simple process became known as pasteurization. At first, many people were skeptical. Some believed heating milk ruined it. Others distrusted the new method. But over time, the evidence became impossible to ignore. Pasteurization dramatically reduced disease. It saved countless lives. Today, nearly every carton of milk sold in supermarkets has been pasteurized. One scientific breakthrough transformed milk from a risky product into one of the safest, everyday foods. Today, milk is part of daily life for billions of people. Every year, the world produces hundreds of millions of tons of dairy. From small family farms to highly automated facilities, cows are milked using technologies that ancient farmers could never have imagined. Robotic milking systems can identify individual cows. Sensors monitor their health. Machines analyze milk quality in real time. Within hours, milk can travel from a farm to a processing plant, where it is tested, pasteurized, packaged, and shipped across entire countries. The dairy industry has become one of the largest agricultural sectors on Earth, yet not everyone drinks milk. Many adults around the world are still lactose intolerant. In fact, globally, most people lose the ability to digest lactose after childhood. For them, milk can cause discomfort, while fermented dairy products like yogurt or certain cheeses are often easier to consume. This reminds us of something remarkable. The story of milk is also the story of human diversity. Different populations adapted in different ways, shaped by thousands of years of history, culture, and evolution. Think about everything that began with one simple decision. A farmer noticed that an animal produced more milk than its young could drink. Instead of letting it go to waste, they experimented. That moment led to new foods, new farming methods, new economies, new trade networks, even changes in human genetics. Milk helped feed growing populations, supported the rise of cities, fueled explorers and armies, inspired religious traditions, and connected generations through shared meals. Few everyday foods have had such a profound impact on human history. What began as an experiment became a cornerstone of civilization. The next time you pour milk into a cup, add it to your coffee, or enjoy a piece of cheese, remember, you're taking part in a tradition that stretches back nearly 10,000 years, a tradition born from curiosity, refined through innovation, and carried across generations by countless farmers, families, and civilizations, milk, is more than just a drink. It is a living connection to our past, a reminder that some of history's greatest revolutions didn't begin with kings or conquerors. They began with ordinary people asking extraordinary questions. If you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like the video,